Just beautiful outside. Breeze is blowing. It's in the mid 70s. Birds chirping. I love the seasons. I love the changes of the seasons. I try to keep a positive outlook in my life. And no matter what season it may be, even in the middle of the winter when the power goes out, which actually happened when the tree took down my power line years back, but it was my personal power line to my house, so I had to fix it myself, and it was during an ice storm. But I instantly said, this is a good time for family to get together and play games. It was a great thing, even though it was cold. I've always tried to be grateful for the things I have. And when I started my YouTube channel, at least once I got it, once I started making regular videos a couple years after I started it, I decided that I wanted to talk about positive topics. And I've tried to continue that trend. They may not always appear to be positive, but there's usually a goal in mind. And even if I talk about something that's horrific or complain about a person or a group of people or an organization or a situation or a law, whatever it may be, it's because there are people who are suffering because of it. And that comes down to empathy. I have a lot of empathy and sympathy, define them how you will. We have this debate about the difference with my friends and I. But a lot of empathy, a lot of sympathy for those who have struggled in their lives, even though we've all struggled. But you have to have empathy tempered with strength. And that strength has to come from within. The ability to withstand the forces of reality. The fact that in life some things suck. And some people suck. And no matter how we try to wear rose-colored glasses or what bullshit we tell ourselves, we know deep down inside that there are moments where you just have to tell someone to just go fuck themselves. And there are moments where you have to complain about things, even if you want to remain silent. This is why, even though I may revere, at one time in my life have revered Buddhist monks, for example, picturing in my mind, well, they're up there to obtain their own truth, their own enlightenment, solitary, away from the cares of the world. As I became an adult, I realized that that's just another form of brainwashing. You can't escape the world. You can't escape the problems. You can go hide away if you want to, but that's not solving anything. It's selfish and not community oriented other than your own clique of those who believe the way you do. And this is where we get groups and kind of the theme of this, which is that old saying, you may have heard it, goes along the lines of something such as, never underestimate the power of stupid people in large groups. And I would say you could double down on that with never underestimate the power of very stupid people in very large groups. And never in history have we had the opportunity to see so much stupidity in one place. And the internet's made that possible. And it's allowed voices that previously wouldn't have been an issue, maybe that would have fizzled out, to convince other people that they know what they're talking about. I'm going to pause this until these sirens pass. So in order for me to talk about stupidity, I have to talk about what stupidity is and why it's important, because honestly, I sat here for a few minutes before I started this video thinking, do I even want to talk about this? Now, there are moments when ideas pass through my head that I want to cover on a video. And usually they are things that arouse my emotions. And often it has to do with things that have happened to people, horrific things, how people have been completely screwed over by their governments, by their own police, the people that their parents, their scout master, whoever it may be, people who are wronged and they may not have a voice themselves. And it is the stupidity, the definition of stupidity is very complicated, and I can't cover all of that here. But I just want to make it clear that I'm aware that saying stupid, somebody is stupid, is not something I take lightly. But it reminds me of George Carlin anytime I think about stupidity. He had quite a bit on stupid people, and he didn't hold back at all. And I laugh my ass off every time I watch it, even though I cringe at the same time. You know what I mean? I cringe because of how blatant and brutal he delivers it, but how I agree, nonetheless. But there is a big difference between stupidity and mere ignorance. Some people are stupid. Ignorance is a choice. It means you're unaware to even look at the facts. And the past couple decades, I've learned through my interactions with people that if I, for example, have a discussion and a debate with someone and I send them data points or an article or whatever it may be explaining and proving my position, they won't even debate it because they won't even read it. And most people have this idea, don't confuse me with the facts, I've already made up my mind. That's another old quote I always remember. And most people feel that way. And there are a lot of people. I mean, all you have to do is look at the groups of people marching around with QAnon flags. It's absurd what people are willing to believe with absolutely no evidence, and the things that they're willing to do because of it. And that's why power in groups and numbers can be based on something completely false, misleading, or misunderstood. And that's why ignorance is even more threatening than stupidity, because it's almost like we're willfully choosing to ignore the truths around us. And I see it more and more, and it's hard not to call it out. And I also want to make it clear that I'm stupid as well, in my own ways. And I'm not just doing that to cover my ass in some way, to say, oh, well, I'm not offending people. No, some people need to be offended, and I'll stand by that. However, this idea a lot of Americans have, say, of the South, or a Southerner with a Southern accent. And most of us know that there are highly intelligent people everywhere, but if somebody presents a certain Southern accent, people might think, oh, they're just an uneducated hick, or maybe it's the way that they're dressed. But that's absurd. Even then, even if the person was totally uneducated and unschooled, maybe that person knows how to live off the land. And so if your lights went out at your house, if there was a major solar flare and the city shut down completely, who's going to be stupid then, right? So if stupidity is based on how you function in the world or how educated you are, well, how educated are you on living off the land when the shit hits the fan? And the point I'm trying to make is that we've got to look at each other with a different lens. I hate it when people label all liberals as libtards or all conservatives as idiots or racists. It's absurd, and it's stupid, it's childish, and it's ignorant. It's not stupid, it's ignorant, because you're ignoring the fact that people are different and think differently. And I've heard this from intelligent people, or people I think are intelligent, that make claims that are just so absurd that you just have to say bullshit. But definitions change, ideas change, and I'm watching this unfolding of a new world right now that we're all going to have to just deal with. And I guess the question, and it kind of comes down to that, do you want to be on the right side of history? And what I mean by that is, I think that we really need to be more authentic. And I'm not just talking about finding yourself or, learning who you are, any of that crap. I'm just saying, speak your mind, be yourself, and the world will work itself out. But some of the biggest issues we have are stupidity, greed, and ignorance. And greed plays a big role. If you think of stupidity and ignorance, they are the fodder and the feed for greed. So greedy people and people who are willing to take advantage of others prey on stupidity and ignorance. This is why people are selling crystal pendants online that are supposed to align your chakras, and people buy that shit up. Otherwise intelligent people being very stupid out of desperation. No, there are no healing pendants and crystals or a phone sticker that can block EMF radiation. There are no there's no such thing as a med bed that's going to heal you from all your diseases. There's no scalar energy. There's no quantum field that somebody's learned how to manipulate. It may be there, but I'm saying these people who are selling this shit, it amazes me that people still buy into it. It's a plague of stupidity, and it's brought on by people's inaccurate, I guess, the inaccurate portrayal of what's really going on in the world. As I watched a show earlier from a channel I hadn't seen before, I would highly recommend it. The channel, I believe, was called Skip Intro. That's the name of the channel. I'd never seen it before, but it was one about fentanyl and cop shows. And it was about an hour long. It's a long format video, and it's really well done. They talked about all the bullshit in these cop shows, the NCIS, the 20 different, types they have, the thousands of episodes of cop shows, which Americans seem so drawn to watch. Ever since I remember seeing Ice-T on NCIS or something, I was like, I didn't watch the show, but I was like, what, he's actually a cop in a show? It was just a weird time. But you see this police mentality that's portrayed in the shows that always disgusted me, even way back in the early shows, Cops get away with what they want, they can bend the law, and Americans eat this shit up. In fact, some of the first cop shows were actually funded and helped by the LAPD. You'll have to look into that yourself. It was interesting. But, the thing with like Cops, the show, things like this, they want you to be on the side of the police. Even when they're doing things that are illegal and breaking the very laws that they're claiming to be able to protect you from, and people are dumb enough to think that that's okay. That it's okay for a cop to break the same laws in order to apprehend somebody who's breaking a different law. And this mentality went over and over in my head, but this discussion on that video was about the fentanyl crisis and how stupid people are about what's really going on. The cop shows, they make it look like if you just open up a suitcase that had a bag of fentanyl in it, then you're going to overdose. There have been videos that have surfaced of police opening up, bags of drugs and supposedly overdosing and passing out, giving them Narcan and everything. Turned out it's complete bullshit. Just like the rainbow fentanyl thing, it was completely blown out of proportion. It was not marketed to kids. The thing is, when we have a fear, this is the point I'm making, because look, I'm not downplaying fentanyl, believe me. My niece died from an overdose a couple years back, and I hate that shit. I hate that shit with a passion. And I wish I could completely annihilate fentanyl from the face of the planet, but the fact is we live with it. Therefore, people need to be educated about it and educated about what's going on. But it's a horrendous crisis. However, if you're not informed on what's really going on, you may have more of a psychosomatic illness, having a panic attack, thinking you're overdosing. My point being that if you believe television portrays the real world or the internet, you're missing the big picture, and it's going to bite you in the ass. If you get out and talk to people, you find that it doesn't matter what political party they're in. It doesn't matter what religion they're in. When you meet people face to face, you find out that stupid people, intelligent people, we're all the same people. But when we're separated by screens, watch out. I think on a couple final notes here, which may even be the midpoint, who knows, just rambling, but YouTube is an example of something I wanted to talk about as far as stupidity, not stupidity, but greed, the greed aspect of it, and how many YouTubers are buying right into this. In other words, corporations used to sell you garbage, and people trust small YouTubers, or smaller people. They may have 1 million subscribers, but they trust them because they feel like they know them. It's a one-way relationship. It's called a parasocial relationship, where you don't know your subscribers, but they know you. And that's why I'm grateful to have all of you. On a side note, my subscribers are fucking awesome. I've had some of you comment for years. I read every comment still, and I respond when I can, but I'm always aware of what you have to say, and I think it's fucking awesome. And I do this for the sake, and I still try to keep it OG. I do it for the sake of sharing my thoughts with people without it being tainted by messages of advertisements. And when somebody sits here and tells you about the corruption of the art world and the corruption of, you know, uh, and then next thing you know, they go to their sponsorship, which is Masterworks, where you can buy stock in some painting or something, which is a complete scam, by the way. And most of these are, most of the VPNs and all the crap that they're selling you are just shit. There's been a huge controversy on YouTube, and this has been blowing up for a while now. But as I was going to make a video about this topic yesterday, coincidentally enough, one of my recent favorite channels, I've been watching it for a while, but this guy Michael Burns, he runs Wisecrack. And I never took the channel seriously until I watched it enough times to realize the guy's a deadhead and he's a philosopher, and that's pretty much all I need. And he made a 2 hour long podcast, a live podcast or live cast, where he was answering all those questions and reading the comments of people who were saying, oh, it's ironic you talk about corruption and you say your channel's philosophy, but then you're selling these bullshit sponsorships to these companies. And it's something that has bothered me for a while, only because I know people are victims. I don't care that people are making money off sponsorships. That's not the issue. I don't care that people are getting money from these companies. And hopefully their viewers are smart enough to know that they're just doing it because they need the income. But when you have somebody who has like a sponsorship in their video, plus ads at the beginning and end, and several mid-roll ads, and on top of that, they're selling their own merch, selling all this shit. It's like at some point you've just got, like, the message gets lost. Like a 10-minute video becomes mostly just bullshit ads and sponsorships and repeating the same old bullshit. And hey, I'm not one to say, I'm a guy who sits here and talks to you, and if you want to donate to my Patreon, you can, but I'm not forcing you to, and I'm not forcing you to watch ads, and I'm not giving you sponsorships. However, this video is always sponsored by nature and another beautiful day, and it is getting hot. But to get back to the point, it's okay to make money. There's nothing wrong with that. The point is greed and the ignorance of the people who believe in the products you're selling. So, for example, as I was watching a video earlier, it's a great channel. I love Cold Fusion. And their sponsorships are always companies, you know, it's not Brilliant or something like that. It's usually a company that you would think, okay, that's something that a person may or may not want, but isn't going to buy believing in hope. I don't like scams. I don't like companies that are promoting scams. I think it was hilarious when all these people had to backtrack on their bullshit about NFTs. And I'm only going to talk about this for a moment because I don't want to rub this in anybody's face who's a crypto fan. But a couple of years ago, I talked about this and made a video. I was like, dude, cryptocurrency is bullshit. It's too volatile. And I got it totally attacked. You'll see Bitcoin's going to hit 100,000 next year. And I was like, okay, whatever. You might get lucky, you might not, but it's gambling. It's based on nothing at all. And that speculation can cost you your life savings if you're not careful. But the NFT thing, when people started selling little pictures of Bored Apes, when I saw a clip from like Jimmy Fallon with Paris Hilton holding up their Bored Ape, like late night celebrities in Hollywood shilling these fucking pictures of horribly done computer generated pictures because they're fucking not even art, because it's just different outfits on the... I didn't know what to think. I was like, is this where we're at right now? Seriously. Not to be that guy, but you know, when I did talk about this, I've had people who otherwise are pretty damn smart people say, no, NFTs are the future. No, NFTs are not the future. Clip art is not something that you sell. If people put as much fucking time into actually trying to do good for the world, sharing good ideas, doing research, philosophy, trying to understand themselves and others, instead of trying to make money, it would be a completely different world. But that's not the world we live in. And I don't know what to do about that. But I want to make this as my final note here. Hi, Lucy. What's up, baby? Lucy wants to say hi. Hi. Good girl. Um, YouTube was supposed to be a place where we, the people, could gather and share our thoughts about the world. Okay? And it still is. There is a corner of YouTube, if you can find it, where people are just still sharing videos talking about their life. And I watch plenty of them. However, most of the channels that I once revered have gone into high production, and the message gets lost with the production. They talk about how long it takes to set up the lighting and get the camera angles right, and how many cuts they do, and how they go do the jump cuts and have to edit and edit and edit. And my question is always this: if you're not doing an entertainment channel, why do you need all that crap? Can't you just sit behind the camera and talk about life? Because a lot of these channels, that's how they started, and they did a great service by, because those little nuances, the moments where a person's thinking, processing their next idea, those are part of a conversation, okay? And I feel like this short form content, and especially the shorts and the TikTok world, are just making people dumb. And I'm not one of the old man screaming at clouds guys. I realize that we still have an attention span. We can still utilize it. At least those of us from Gen X. But I've noticed more and more people kind of use ADD as an excuse to not pay attention to each other, that we're always distracted by something else. And really what it comes down to is that connection we can have with one another. Even in those moments. I'm guilty. We're all guilty. Hell, you're watching this video now instead of doing something important. Or maybe you're watching it while you're doing something important. Hopefully you're not driving while you're watching, but I guess you could listen. But it is strange to have people even watch what I have to say. And I can see how a person who hasn't processed these things, and let's say their channel grows really fast, they're going to want to provide, and they're going to want to cater their channel to make the most out of it. And I get that. However, so much gets lost in the fame and the money, you know. Look at how most of these people end up. Douchebags. I read an article the other day about a guy. I don't know who he was. I just read the headline, but it was, and part of the first part of the article, but it was about a guy who was interviewing a YouTuber, and he was talking about how he spends half of his income on his car payment. And he has some, $70,000 car, $64,000 car that he makes payments on it, like $1,300 a month or something, which is half of his $2,600 income. And he was being asked about it, and the guy who was interviewing said, "I just think you're stupid to spend that kind of money on something like that." And I looked at the picture of the guy and I thought, there are a lot of dudes out there who just think that they look cool because they drive a fancy car. If you're one of those guys, I'm sorry. It doesn't make you cool. It makes you cool to people who aren't cool. Yeah, that's different if you're driving a muscle car or, a collector's car. I'm not saying I dislike cars. I love good cars. I love fast cars. But if your car becomes your identity, watch out, because that's really pathetic. I think that we should never let not only our cars become our identity, but our politics should never become our identity. Our religion should never become our full identity. We should still be people, community oriented, regardless of what people believe or preach or think. And we're never going to have a world of philosopher kings, nor are we going to have a world of philosophers, people who are really willing to spend the time, because a lot of people don't want to think. And there will always be stupid people. And something's changing right now on my very final note with artificial intelligence. And I'm going to do a video about this, podcast about this, because it's just fascinating. I've been following ChatGPT and now Google's Bard that they released, which is pretty mind-blowing where we're at. And a guy posed a question. He said, Well, we have automatic response emails, predictive text already, but now they have ones where you can just say, respond to this email, and it'll sense the discussion and write out a response email. What happens when they're just automatically generated and they send it to a company and all disputes are settled through AI, and nobody even talks to one another anymore? But I thought that was interesting. But at the same time, the bigger thing here is that creativity is starting to get replaced, but it doesn't mean that it's dead. There will always be a need for artists, people. People want people. People want to connect with people. Robots are interesting. AI is interesting. And it is going to be a very strange future as we start to wonder whether or not the things that we're reading are true or even written by humans. The things that we're seeing, the pictures, are created by humans. It's not like AI is just going to be in the hands of a couple companies. This is going to just explode, and we're going to evolve a million years past where we're at. We already have they said something like, one of these programs did like 400 million years worth of like protein decoding in the in the body or something. All you have to do is put in the right parameters, and we are on the precipice of something amazing. I just hope that having all this advanced technology, the ability to take care of our health easily, and the ability to access information easily, that people are still aware that they can get swept into bullshit, because it's much easier to coerce people when they're passive. But I don't know. Guess that'd leave that up to the individual. Ignorance is bliss, as they say. I don't really agree, but for some it might be the best path. So choose your path wisely. As I said, thanks for coming along. I'll mention that I do have a Patreon if you want to donate for even $1 a month, and there's a bunch of unlisted videos on there. I also have a couple other channels. I have Carpo, which is just channels Carpo. Carpo's Thoughts, I think it used to be. And then I have my guitars channel, Guitars and Woodworking, which is a Carpo Craft. And then my podcast is 15-Minute Free Thinking. It's on most platforms. So thanks for listening. Talk to you next time. Peace out.